Good evening, men. Welcome back to Tribe Talk. I'm Jim Marion here with my good friend Mike. Say hi, Mike.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you today?
I am doing well.
Yeah.
It's been a long week, but feeling a little bit tired, but I'm hanging in there, man. I'm ready to go.
Me too. In the new space. This is great. We can put the mics right up to our face.
Yeah. So we're trying out a new area today for the podcast, and it's pretty cool in here.
I'm a little nervous because I can look you right in the eye now.
It's a little weird,
Yeah.
but we'll get over it.
It's fine. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
All right. So, guys, today we are talking about what I think is kind of the foundational principles of our ministry.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Absolutely. This is, I think, 2 points that are as important than anything that we're talking about.
Yeah, agreed. And for those that have not been through the curriculum and don't know what we're talking about, we are going to be discussing identity and purpose, what important topics for men. So, Mike, tell everybody why this is so important to us and exactly what are the principles that we're talking about with Junto Tribe.
Yeah, so there's two guys out there that wrote a great book, and I think I got this from a book called "I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist."
Wait, you read books?
Yeah, every once in a while.
Our listeners don't know how many books you have.
It's a slight addiction.
You're definitely like the Ron Burgundy of the
That's
faith world.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
My curiosity is more than I can take sometimes, but
more than we can take too.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
We love you anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, go ahead.
Well, so a couple things that these two guys talk about that wrote the book is Norman Geisler and Frank Turek, and they say that there are 5 questions that I'm not sure if they call them this. I know I call them this, is the big 5.
Well, we're coining it now.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So the big 5 are questions that they argue that everybody, doesn't matter who you are asking these questions and about yourself, and whether you even know it or not, but you are. 2 of those big questions are who am I? So it's a question about my identity, who am I? And then the other one is, I'm going completely blank right now, but
It's late in the day, buddy.
That's right.
Take your time.
And then the other one is, why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? And so those are 2 very important questions, and I think we're going to kind of unpeel those and look at them today.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting about this question too, what you just revealed is every man's battle through life, not just men of faith, right?
That's right.
We just choose here at Junto Tribe to seek our Creator when we ask those questions. So, I mean, you've read a lot of books. What have you found out?
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing that's interesting is that I think, and I've done it plenty of times throughout my life, so I am not throwing stones at anybody. And that's actually the main reason why I want to talk about it so much, is because going through my life, I just missed the reality of who I am. And so when we think of ourselves and say, well, I'm this, in other words, I'm an engineer, or I'm a business owner, whatever it is, that's not really who you are. And as we talk about in the ministry, those are missions you've been given in life, but it's not necessarily who you are. There is something much deeper and more important than what you do for a living.
Yeah, of course. And ironically, that's the first question we ask each other when we meet each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which really doesn't define you at all, does it?
No, that's right. And, speaking of that, I remember years ago when I was struggling with this very thing, one of the things I would do is I would meet someone. I'd meet you on the street, or, at an event that I'm at or whatever, and I would catch myself asking you what you did for a living. And I know it sounds terrible, but I was doing it less about wanting to know what you do for a living. I knew that you would ask me the same thing. So in other words, what I was hoping you would do is you would ask me what I do for a living, because that was a way for me to show you, hey, I'm a this. This is who I think I am.
Well, it's such a rigged question too, because you said you're hoping that I would ask you that, but it's almost like standard protocol.
Yeah.
I ask you, you ask me.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm just waiting my turn to get to share how amazing I am.
Yeah. That's it. Well, you are amazing.
Well, okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's
But I mean, A real relationship's not based on that.
No, absolutely not.
So it is kind of a shallow question. So what should guys be asking themselves then?
So I think so if I could just tell a story real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so years ago, this is where this really started kind of taking. I was starting to really wonder about this and asking questions a lot. We were actually able. I used to work for the University of Denver Pioneers. It was a Division I hockey program, and we had just won the national championship, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And I remember walking out after the game. We had just won. The game was 1-0. It was the lowest scoring championship game in the history of college hockey at that time.
And you're talking the big game, right? The Frozen Four.
The Frozen Four, yep.
Okay.
So it's a little bit like if you are a basketball fan, you've got the Final Four. Well, in collegiate hockey, you've got the Frozen Four. And so we had won. And we were not actually, we barely made it to the tournament that year, but somehow as soon as we got to the tournament, last 16 teams in the country, we just were unbelievable and just went, unbelievable.
Any given day, buddy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Any given day. That's my wife
awesome.
says all the time.
I love that.
Yeah. So anyway, as we had won the championship, Aaron Andrews is there from ESPN. ESPN's there. What's his name? Barry Melrose is there. We're standing in the middle of Boston Garden at the Garden. And yeah, that's right.
That was a wicked good accent.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And I'm standing there, and 16,000 people were just there, and now they're gone. And I remember standing out in the middle of the ice. all of the players are in the locker room, and they're carrying the national championship trophy, which they so lovingly called the credit card later on because they were able to get free stuff left and right. That's an NCAA violation. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah. All those guys have graduated, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right.
The culture's changed since
that's
then.
right.
Yeah.
And so anyway, and I was standing out in the middle of the ice that night, and I was just, and everybody's partying and having a good time, and I could hear the music playing in the locker room, and I'm not near the guys. I just had to get away from them. So there I am standing in the middle of the ice in Boston Garden. The Zamboni is starting to come out and is starting to clean up, from where we just had battle, trying to get this trophy, and no one can take it from us. That's it. And as I'm looking up into the arena, I've got text messages coming from my friends. I'm ignoring them.
Nice.
Yeah, just tons of stuff coming up, and I just felt so empty. And looking back, I didn't understand why that night. And I kept thinking, it was interesting. I kept thinking that if there was a moment before that where I felt if I can just get this, if we can just win the big one, then I'll have all the answers I need. And then suddenly I thought, well, I won't have to work as hard because, everything's going to be handed to me. I'm a champion, this, that, and another thing. That was one. The second one was, that I thought that it was going to somehow answer this hole that I had in my heart.
Right.
And what that hole was my identity. So as I said, if I would have met you back in those days, I would have asked you what you did for a living. You would have told me, and then I would have said, and then you would have asked me, and I would have been so excited to tell you I'm a strength conditioning coach for a Division I hockey program. And then when we got that win, it just didn't answer the hole in my heart. There was something more missing.
What's crazy too is I'll bet you were forecasting, like, I want to be able to say, not only am I a Division I hockey strength coach, but we're also national champions.
Yeah. And
that was like the last feather that could validate what you believed about yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And not only that, but the university had not won a national championship for 30 some years or something like that. So then you start thinking, oh my gosh, I am probably going to go the rest of my career and nothing is ever going to happen like this again. And anyway, it just starts playing on your mind because I put so much into my identity being what I did for a living, and it was wrong.
So what'd you find at center ice instead?
That night?
Yeah.
More confusion.
Isn't that a great narrative about life?
Yes. I missed. Oh man, I missed so much that night. And so I just honestly committed to myself to work harder, to figure out how we were going to do it again, and just put more into what I thought my identity and my purpose was to help the people I work with win championships. Right? So
it didn't come into clarity.
Nope, did not come into clarity that night.
Man,
And
that's crazy.
The clarity came. It's still coming, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But the clarity came at a different time when I was working in the military. We can talk about that some other time. But
Well, I mean, we had to have arrived at the principles that we're teaching somehow, and it started with you. Obviously, our organization started with you. So, what came next? How did we get here?
yeah, so later on, I'm working in Virginia Beach at the time. I had turned down the National Hockey League to go work as a strength coach for an NHL hockey team. I turned it down, not really knowing exactly why. I just felt like God was telling me, don't go, and my faith was not near what it is today. So I went in and told my athletic director, I'm sticking around, I'm staying. Shortly after that, I started really struggling, like, man, what am I doing here? It was time for something different. So I found out that the military was, specifically the special operations community, was taking the idea of how we prepare individuals for an environment, hockey being completely different than, say, volleyball. But I used to train, both those types of athletes, and take that into the military. And so when I heard about it, I was like, man, I am getting one of those jobs.
Yeah, that would pique my interest too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so nothing else mattered. I was like, I am going to get one of those jobs. And so I worked really hard. I put my name out there, and excuse me. And the next thing you know, I ended up getting hired on by a SEAL team to go in and train those individuals physically for combat.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's how it went. So then what ended up happening?
Well, so was there an immediate shift to your identity?
Not yet.
Okay.
So again, I kept thinking, here's what I kept thinking. My purpose is to help these guys win this war. My identity is I'm a strength and conditioning coach for SEALs. That was the most important thing.
Right.
So anything that got in the way of that, right, just get out of the way.
Right.
So, and I always remember thinking, as long as I'm smarter and I teach my guys correctly and I work them harder than everybody else, they will always be okay, and we will always win championships. I did it in hockey.
Yeah, cause and effect.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So we'll just keep doing it. So I kept believing this, and then we had a group of guys that I did not even know they were gone. They went down range, and they ended up getting involved in a pretty massive mission, and they were successful. When I didn't know they were gone, so I was in bed that night, and I used to have to keep my phone on all the time just because I was working at that place, and in case they needed us in the middle of the night, I had to go in, and my phone rang. I got a text, and I look at my phone, and it was from a former hockey player that I used to work with, who's now in the NHL. Excuse me. And he says something that he had seen on the news that I did not know about, but it did affect me.
And you kind of figured you were connected to it.
I knew I was connected to it. So I got up. I was like, man, I got to go see what's going on. So I go outside. I sit down at my chair, and this is the first time where I can legitimately say that in my life that I heard the Holy Spirit. I heard him.
Okay.
And what I heard was, you know who these guys are. You're connected to it. And then I remember hearing him say, and now what are you going to do?
Dude, he laid the gauntlet down.
Yes. So I didn't understand at the time, but what that meant was, remember, I told you that back in the collegiate hockey days, I even with wins, I was like, okay, well, that didn't answer the hole in my heart. Now what am I going to do? So the Holy Spirit was turning it around on me and saying, I put you here. You got to be a part of this. Now what are you going to do with it?
Dude, that's crazy too, because the Holy Spirit knew to ask you that question before you had the chance to ask it.
Yes, because he knows me better than I know myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So he knows where I'm struggling. He knows what I'm capable of. And this is important, Jim. It really is. Like, God knows the reality of who we are. We can get in our own ways over and over again. And that goes to what this ministry is about. And I'm sure we'll get to that here in a minute. But the idea is that we are not here for ourselves. Our faith is not for us. It is to a point. Once I say yes to Jesus, that's an important piece, but it's not for us. As soon as we say yes to him, we have work to do.
Yeah, I think it's pretty remarkable too that the first time you had one of these questioning moments was almost of your own volition, standing on center ice. Mm-hmm. The second time, you were probably a little bit more mature, mm-hmm. and God knew that you were a man that would step up to a challenge, mm-hmm. and so the question in your heart was more of a challenge.
That's good. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about that before?
No, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it just kind of came to me. I'm not sure if that's how the Holy Spirit was working that day, but yeah. it would make sense that knowing you the way I do,
yeah.
that if God was like, okay, now what? Now are you going to hear my voice? Now are you going to step up to the plate? That at that point in your life, you would have been like, oh, you're going to challenge me? I'm the type of guy that would like to step to a challenge.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and so that night then, and by the way, because you're probably thinking it, because you've already asked me a couple of times, the next morning I wake up and I'm back to being normal again.
Weird, huh?
Yeah, I'm just being myself. Like, well, cool. Told you. We work harder than everybody else. I try to be smarter than everybody else, and we will always win. So, perfect.
Proof.
Yep.
Proof that my formula is effective.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And then fast forward. A couple months later, I'm walking around on a Saturday morning. It's super nice outside in Virginia Beach, and I'm walking around her house, and my daughter, Tiny, she was tiny at the time, she's in the back playing. My wife's in the kitchen. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm running around the living room, and I get a text message, and it just says, "We lost a whole troop of guys last night." And now I'm a civilian. I'm a civilian. I've never been in combat. I'm brand new at this. Been around for about a year, so I'm trying to understand this, this world that I'm in now, and I see this, and I'm like, wait a minute, what does that mean? And the first thing, it's crazy what I was thinking. Like, that's weird. Troop. Hold on. Okay, well that's a whole group of guys. That's a whole team.
It's a pretty big number.
That's a big number, and I wonder if I know any of them.
Yeah, and they use the word "we" in that text.
That's right.
Which would signify familiarity and.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So fast forward again, I find out that I do know them, and I had trained a lot of them for that mission. Now, here's the point. My job, I thought, was to prepare people to go into an area and I was going to be smarter. I was going to work harder than everybody, send them into that area so that they could always win championships. They could always win because I want them to outlast, outwork, whatever the opponent, right? Well, these guys didn't even get a chance to fight back. They're on a helicopter. Some are probably taking naps because they were known to do such a thing, taking naps on the way to combat.
Every chance you get.
Yep. And they're some of them might be thinking of their kids, their wives, or whatever. And by the way, some of them had kids that were not even born yet. And bang, just like that, they are gone. When I saw the names, I remember falling down on my knees, and I started crying. And I remember shortly after calling my mom, who's now passed away as well, and I called my mom, and she says, "Hello," and I said, "Mom, they're gone. They're gone." And she said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, and I explained to her that we lost a whole troop of guys last night, and I remember this was not God, this was me. I remember sitting on the ground and crying, and I remember saying, "Did I do everything I could for them?" And I remember saying, "Yeah, I did. Physically speaking, I did everything I knew what to do. I did everything I could." And then I remember asking myself, "Yeah, but did you do everything you could for them spiritually? Did you take the time when you were training them to really listen to what was going on in their lives? Did you show them who Jesus was? Did you pray for them, pray with them? Did you have those conversations?" And the answer was no, I could have done a better job.
Yeah.
And so that ate me alive. And so then that's when I started realizing I've got to change the way I'm looking at my life.
So where do you go next, man?
So that comes to me writing down a bunch of things for myself, right? Because I'm trying to understand myself. So I sat down and I started writing this book, but it was selfish still. I was I was trying to figure myself out, which I think at some level there's always a little bit of that. When an author sits down to write something, they are trying to figure out something about themselves. They're curious about it, right? But they also want to share it with the world. But at the time, I would say that there's more on just the selfish side of things of trying to understand myself. And as I started doing it, I was like, I started feeling is that, man, I'm gonna talk to some guys about this. So I started meeting with people and old guys, young guys, colonels in the military to, admirals. I remember to young guys, to middle guys, to business owners, to people that don't have businesses, all this stuff.
So are you picking their brains, or are you
Yeah,
sharing
I'm asking
ideas?
them questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm asking them questions about, hey, what do you think of this and all that? And then when I started realizing, oh my gosh, they're struggling with the same things I am.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where this ministry really started coming forward. So I wrote these things down. I wrote a lot, and then I sent it to an editor, and she said, "You've got nothing. Start over."
That's so encouraging.
Yeah. So please read the book because I worked really, really hard on it.
We're much better now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and this is what I love about it. God is just continues to teach me more and more and more. And, looking back, man, my faith is stronger. It almost gets stronger monthly, because I just learn more and more, and I just want to share it with the world.
Well, so let's share the principle, man. So before it was, I am a strength coach, and that's my purpose, and my mission is to win championships. Is that how you classified it?
Yep.
So what is it now?
So now I realize that, number one, the most important part about me, and when I say the most important part about me, I'm telling you, and I'm telling all women, men.
This is the first question, right?
Yeah, this is the first question of who am I?
Who am I? Yeah.
So this is a question about identity. Every one of us is asking that question. I was asking that question, trying to figure out, and I was trying to answer the hole in my heart through the world. So here's the thing, is that the most important part of who we are is that we are children of the living God.
Boom.
That's it.
It seems pretty simple, Mike.
Yeah, right. But it's not. It's because we have so many things pulling us in so many different directions. And we can lose sight of it so dang fast. And the world hurts us. The world gives us success, the world and everything in between. And many times in that process, in the successes, I can go, hey man, I did a pretty good job here. And in those times when I'm hurt really bad, I can go, man, I'm a piece of junk, but we're not.
Yeah. I mean, I actually love how simple it is, because it's truly one of the only things that can't be taken from you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
No matter what happens.
No matter what happens.
It can't be taken from you.
Like even if we make poor choices or make mistakes, it can never be stripped from you.
That's right.
So it's enduring.
It's enduring.
Right.
Love that. So one of my favorite passages in the Bible, it talks about this, and actually we talked about the big five early on, and I can go over what all the big five are at some point, but again, identity and purpose, the main part we want to talk about is that I believe that in Ephesians 1, in verses 3 all the way down, I believe to 14, I believe the Apostle Paul hits on every one of these big five. So for identity, number one, he says, for he chose us, this is in Ephesians 1:4, it says, for he chose us in him before the creation of the world. That means that where did you come from? Which is another one of the big five. People are always asking, where did I come from?
Of course.
Yep. So he chose us in him before the creation. That means that you were in the divine mind of Jesus Christ as a creature, an entity that he was getting ready to put on this planet at the exact time in which you got here. So that's number one. Where did I come from? The second one is he predestined. This is so important. Here's your identity. He predestined us for adoption to sonship through Jesus Christ in accordance with his pleasure and his will. So who are we? We are his sons, and we've been adopted by him, not in a worldly sort of fashion. This is a divine process of him adopting us. So the most important part of who you are is you are his son. Boom.
Just let that sink in for a second.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. We get caught up in all the other stuff, though.
We do. We do all the time. You know, I was thinking and writing about this today. You know, you are not your money, and your money's not yours. It's his.
Can't take it with you anyway.
That's right. Your wife is not yours. She's his. And you are there to steward and to take care of her and to help her understand who she is, where she came from, where she's going. And you know, you and I, you're my buddy for sure, but I don't own you and you don't own me. God does. And you're on loan to me and I'm on loan to you.
True.
So this process is so important that we understand that, because that's what we're here for.
Well, I like to think too, like our tiny little brains aren't big enough to even come close to comprehending how much God loves us. So what he's done is he's put these people on the earth to be in relationship with us.
That's right.
To give us a small taste for how much he loves me.
Yep. That's exactly right.
And our task, especially when you think about what a marriage is supposed to be, is to do my best to love her the way he loves her.
That's right.
That's a lot of pressure, bro.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But it should be pressure. And I think here's another one of the issues that I was struggling with. When we won our first national championship,
Yeah,
that's
right.
some kind of Freudian slip of some sort. I'm not sure what that is.
We'll forgive you.
Yeah, thank you. When we won our first national championship, you know, I remember, thinking that this was going to somehow make life easier for me, right? But that's not how it works. And let me start with this. One of the passages that we talk about a lot is Isaiah, is it 9:6?
6:8.
6:8, that's it.
Yep.
Sorry. 6:8, where he says, God said, who will go for us? And Isaiah says, here I am, send me.
Yes.
If we stop for a second and look back at that passage, as Isaiah was actually taking on something that was going to be a struggle, and there was going to be a lot of really, really hard things. He was going to get pushed in ways, and he said, here I am, send me.
Not only that, Mike, but if you read further back into Isaiah leading up to chapter 6, it's pretty horrible.
Yes.
Yeah, like he had already been through trials.
That's right.
And God was saying, who is going to speak for me?
Mm-hmm.
And he also says that, by the way, when you go, they're not going to listen to you.
Yes. But he still went.
But I want you to go anyway.
I want you to go anyway.
Right.
It's mind-blowing to think about.
That's Whew. A lot of, I mean, that's, our Father puts a lot of trust in us too.
Mm-hmm.
And that can only happen because he knows us so well.
Mm-hmm. So think about that. Does God trust you? The answer is yes. So that is probably going to make some people mad listening, but it's true. God put human beings on this planet, and this goes back to, we talk about a lot in the ministry, excuse me, is Genesis 1:28. Genesis 1:28 talks about how he took the first man and woman, put them in they were in the garden with him, and he says, I'm getting ready to send you out. I'm sending you out from here, and I want you to subdue, take dominion, be fruitful, and multiply. This is the same thing that Isaiah was going through.
I like the multiply part.
Yes, that's part that this is a rated G.
This is a different podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, sorry.
So, yeah, that's okay. But the idea is that he was sending his son and his daughter away from the garden out into on the planet to do what? To change the culture. The name of that, what theologians will call that passage, Genesis 1:28, subdue, take dominion, be fruitful, and multiply, is that he was. They call that the cultural mandate. So God was telling his sons and daughters, "Hey guys, you have work to do."
Yeah. So the garden wasn't just this lounge area.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it was paradise, but it wasn't.
Exactly.
It wasn't a vacation.
So important. So in other words, what you're saying is correct, because so many people, I grew up thinking this, well, it's a paradise. Everything was perfect. But let's stop and think about that for a minute. If it was a paradise, then how did Satan get in and then go at, he didn't knock on God's front door, said, hey, come on, let's go out for a fist fight, right? Because he knows he's not going to win that one.
Yeah, true.
But he went after two dangerous individuals. It was Adam and Eve.
Right.
Because they had been told, I need you to leave here and go out and change the culture. And that's, theologians call it, the cultural mandate.
Nice.
They were given a plan. I want you to leave here, go out and change the culture.
Yeah.
So then that means that when we say in the ministry that your faith is not for you, it is to a point, but it's for the world.
Right.
And it means that we need to get out and change the culture.
You know what's crazy too? I've been coming across this a lot lately. The story that you just told, it dawned on me, when you're standing on center ice, you were alone.
Mm-hmm.
And when you told us you found out about the very successful raid and then the troops that died, in your story, you're alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Isn't it weird how God talks to you when you're alone?
In the quiet. Yep.
Man, some of the biggest revelations in my life have come when I turn off the noise.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to start doing that more, I think.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think so many people look at prayer and think, man, I got to be talking and just letting God know left and right.
Get my laundry list of stuff I want.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. But one of the things that I'm doing now recently is when I sit down to pray, I actually don't start. Well, some days there might be some serious things coming up. I might even had a dream and I'm like, God, what is that all about? But for the most part, I'll sit down and I'm just quiet. And what I do is I envision me sitting next to my Savior. And I just sit there and I just wait for him to speak to me. And sometimes I can go 35 minutes, very seldom, because I'm a very talkative individual. But I can almost go 35 minutes and not say anything and just sit there with him. And then sometimes he's getting hammered for 35 minutes. And I'm constantly, God, what about this? How do I handle this? And I got this meeting coming up and I need your help and those kinds of things. But we don't have to be, constantly hammering our God with things that we need. So it's like this. Think about, Jim, when your kids were little.
Yep.
You just want to hold on to them.
Yeah.
They didn't have to say a word to you. They were just in your arms. And when they fell asleep, you weren't mad about it.
No, that's true.
So this idea of prayer and worship and those kinds of things, we need to understand that we can just be quiet with him and we don't have to constantly be hammering him with all of our things.
I think children are more beautiful when they're asleep too.
Yes.
You think about it, especially when you're in the the fray, right? You're in
It's
the
so
mix.
true.
Like, oh, a little quiet.
Yep.
Our God probably feels that way too.
Yes.
Like, hey, dude, I know all this.
Yeah. Yep.
You can maybe take it back a notch and just be still with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, we've kind of hammered down on identity. And then, this is a big topic for you and me, especially lately, because we're trying to encourage guys to, I don't know, get off their backsides and actually be doers.
That's right.
So how do we define purpose?
Yeah. So again, going back to Ephesians, this is in 1 to 10. It says that we are headed somewhere. We, as in all human beings, all creation is heading somewhere. Where is that? Is to bring unity to all things in heaven and on earth under Christ. That then, I believe, if we think about the cultural mandate, Genesis 1:28,
Okay.
and we'll talk about Matthew 28 here in a minute,
Yep.
is that we are here to actually do the work to bring unity between all things in heaven and on earth, and we are under Christ. He's our leader.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean then? That when I thought I was a strength conditioning coach, and that was the most important part of who I was, what I was missing was that is not my purpose. That's not my identity. It's not what I do. What I did, those were missions that God put me in.
Yep.
To do what? To bring unity.
Well,
on heaven and on earth.
I mean, if you believe to the identity piece, which is we're sons of the living God, and that can't be changed.
Right.
And as men, we need to feel purpose. At least I do. Like that's
For sure.
I'm at my best when I feel like I have purpose. Your purpose has to be sustaining too. It's got to be forever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's part of my story about why I ended up here.
Yeah. I thought it was because you just wanted to hang out with me.
Well, you got a great haircut, and you're a good-looking guy, and you're very funny and accommodating.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
But yeah, so I mean, just briefly, I was I served in the Air Force for 20 years, and when it was time to leave, I thought I was losing myself too.
Yep.
And I mean, the reality is, there's not a single job on this planet that we can do forever.
No.
There's not one. And the even more stark reality is when I left the Air Force, how dare they continued to fly airplanes without me.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really need me at all.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's it, if that's the end of the story, and your purpose is stripped away from you that easy, then why move on? Why go on?
That's right.
At that point.
And so many, sorry to interrupt you, but so many military people struggle with that. And that's why so many of them, once they get out of the military, they just don't know what to do with themselves.
Right. And I think it's even a more universal truth than that. Like, that's my story, but there are people that pour their lives into a career, and then the economy tanks and they get laid off, or they grow too old to continue to do the job that they were doing because they physically can't do it.
Yep.
You can even go one step further. Like, you and I are dads.
Mm-hmm.
Well, man, I have 4 children, and 3 of them are in college now.
Yep.
My role as their father, the day they left my house and went to college, changed.
Yep.
And if I held on to the way I parented them when they lived under my roof, man, I was up for major disappointment as a dad, because they don't have to listen to me anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
They just don't. And so your role changes. That stuff changes over time. But to have a purpose that's wrapped up in our Creator,
boom, that's so good, man.
Doesn't change at all.
No. So
that's why we say, like, it's got to be something that is sustaining your purpose, and you have to embrace it.
That's right.
And so you mentioned earlier Matthew 28, and we're in verse 16 to 20.
Yep.
And so Jesus is about to depart the disciples to go be crucified.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at them. Well, and just a little preview. It says, "Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And here's the part that I love. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age.
Love that.
Even though he was going to die.
That's right.
And
Actually, he had died. He was actually coming back with him.
Sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
So first of all, how crazy that Jesus would tell us that he's been granted all authority in heaven and I'm giving it back to you.
Right. This is important.
This is really important.
This is huge.
And, with that being said, there are people that are going to hear this and they're going to choose not to love him. Mm-hmm. And it's our job to make sure that as many people as possible don't meet that fate.
That's right.
And so now, no matter what happens, you retire from the Air Force, your role as a father changes, people you love are taken from you. Mm-hmm. Pick something that's devastating to how you define yourself and how your mission changes. That will always endure.
Yep.
The fact that we can usher kingdom to earth from wherever we're at.
That's right. And you are his son.
Right.
Or his daughter forever.
No matter what.
No matter what. Now, okay, do you want to keep going?
No, go ahead.
I don't want to interrupt. So this is important. We know in Genesis 1:28, we call that the
cultural mandate. Yes,
the cultural mandate. That is a mandate. Mandate is it's a command.
Thank you for using that word, command.
Yes, it's a command. It's a command to all people, whether they take it or not. That is the command. Now we also know that something happened. Adam and Eve were tempted, and they allowed themselves to then lose their authority.
Right.
They gave it away.
Based on their choices, yes.
That's right. They gave away their authority. And then
and just to pause, guys, stop blaming your wives. Stop blaming women.
Yeah.
We were there. We were tasked to protect the garden, to include Eve.
That's exactly right.
And the fact that she was the one the devil talked to first is still a failure on our part.
We didn't protect her.
Correct. We have to own that together with our spouses. So they're funny jokes, right? We blame our wives, but they're kind of not that funny too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I get really fired up about that one. Yeah. So anyway,
no,
keep
that's
going.
good. No. So then fast forward, we see Jesus. We see all the other stories that we have in the Bible, and it's a search. There's throughout the whole Bible, it's a search for God, and then there's some that come along that take on the cultural mandate. And Elijah, for example, one of my favorite people ever.
I'm so glad you brought him up. Go ahead.
It's a great guy. But they're getting involved in that process. Isaiah, we talked about him already, and so forth. Well, here's the thing that's important about the Great Commission, which is what you just read to us a couple minutes ago.
Yes.
So the Great Commission and mandate, look it up in the thesaurus, they're the same thing. So in other words, what Jesus was actually doing is he was actually telling his disciples, hey guys, listen up. I have died and now I'm back. Hey, how you doing? Here I am.
Yes.
And he says to him, all authority has been given to him. And what he's actually getting at is I am now taking the authority back that was stolen from you guys back in Genesis 1:28. I've got it back and I'm giving it to you.
Forever. Right.
So.
Well, and here's the cool thing too, because you mentioned some Old Testament heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go all the way back to Adam and Eve. They all failed first.
Yes.
And he still gave it back to us.
Yes.
So quit waiting to be perfect.
That's right.
To do your part.
That's right.
Yeah. What were you going to say? I interrupted you.
So we don't have time to get into this, but I do think it's important that there are 3 different types of covenants that happen throughout the Bible. One of them is called a grant covenant. Another one is called a kinship covenant. And the last one, which is the worst, is called a suzerain vassal covenant. A grant covenant means that if I'm a tribal leader, you're a tribal leader, and we decide to have a covenant together, covenants were extremely, extremely important. They were big deals. And so you're the more powerful of the tribe leaders. I realized, man, I could be safer. The things I have, I'd be safer if I went over and had a covenant with you. And I don't want to make you mad anyway, so I'm going to go over there and I'm going to have a covenant ceremony with you.
Right.
That covenant ceremony, if it was a grant covenant, means you're just a good man. So I come along and say, hey, I want to have a covenant with you, and I want to pledge to you. And you say, okay. So all I need you to do is just be good to me.
Right.
Take care of the things that I have. I'll take care of you, and you get everything. I'm just going to give it to you.
It's a grant, meaning you don't have to pay it back.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Then later on, and we can't get into this why, but when Moses comes along, Moses gets involved, and the Israelites are out in the wilderness, and God says, "Hey, I want to have a covenant ceremony with your people, and I want to make them priests." What he's actually saying is, I want them to do what I've created them for, which is the cultural mandate.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
So he comes down and he says, hey, you guys ready to do this? And they're like, yep, we're good. And they get scared of God and they get freaked out by him. And they say, you know what? That dude scares me. I don't want anything to do with him. Moses, you are the one that's going to talk to him. And they receive something called a kinship covenant.
Okay.
Kinship covenant is when I come to you and say, I want a kinship covenant with you. Or I say, and you're not that good of a dude. You're, okay, but you don't trust me. It's a little bit like a prenup.
Sorry. I'll try harder.
That's right. So we have.
When you say you, are you talking about me?
Yeah, yes, I'm talking about.
Yeah,
you.
my bad.
Yeah, that's
My
right.
bad. Okay, keep going.
And so we have this covenant ceremony where we hack up animals, and we stand in the middle of them. We walk in between, and we say, if I do anything to harm you, you can turn me into these animals. And you say, if I do anything to harm you, then you can turn me into these animals. God did not want that.
He didn't want there to be a price to pay, you mean?
Exactly, but the people asked for it.
Why are we so dumb?
I know, right? So what this was based off of, do a good job for me, both of us, and you will be blessed. Don't, and you'll get cursed.
Yeah, and so this is the setup, too, for why Jesus had to come, right?
That's right. I got one more, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. And then Joshua, you see the time in the Bible where they melt down gold and they pray to a different entity, which was not God. And that, sorry, if it's not God, it's probably demonic. Okay, just going to say that. And then what happened is they actually got into a vassal suzerain covenant. A suzerain is the more powerful of the two. The vassal is you're a slave.
Okay.
Okay. So again, God did not want this for his people. They asked for it because they kept failing over and over again.
Right. Yeah. So also the setup for why Jesus had to come.
Exactly. Thank you.
Right.
So David, this is the reason why, Jim, I have good news for you.
Okay.
You're always called the son of Abraham.
Yeah.
And never called the son of Moses. Moses wasn't a bad guy.
He was operating under the wrong covenant.
He was operating under the wrong covenant. That's why in the New Testament, you are always called a son of Abraham.
Right.
Jesus then comes under David. David was not necessarily the greatest dude in the world. However, his heart was towards God. If you start listening to some of the things David was saying, he was actually saying, hey, we got this wrong. We've been under this vassal covenant, and this is not how it's supposed to work. And he was actually starting to talk about this idea of grant again.
Okay.
Okay. Fast forward. Okay, Jesus is in the line of David. That's important because he came from that sort of background, which is we're headed back to a grant covenant. Jesus sits down with his disciples and has a covenant ceremony. We call it the Lord's Supper now. Communion.
Yeah.
And what he says to him, he says, take, eat, this is my body. Take, drink, this is my blood, and remember me. What he's saying is, you guys screwed this up.
Yeah, royalty.
Right? Yep. And now what we're doing is I am going to have a new covenant ceremony with you. There is no vassal suzerain covenant anymore. There is no kinship covenant. We're going back to grant. Sounds a little bit like grace.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So let me ask you this. How many people, excuse me, are still walking around thinking that they have to work their way into heaven? A lot.
Probably a lot. Yeah.
How many times have I done it?
I mean, I don't know about you, but yeah, I mean, there was a period in my life where I was collecting ministries because I wanted people to see how generous I was.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. My heart was totally in the wrong place.
That's right. So go ahead.
Well, I mean, the reality is like works aren't bad. There's lots of scripture that talk
Right.
about that, but the first step to works is to align your heart with God's.
That's right.
And then the works are kind of a byproduct of being in alignment with God's will for your life.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
So I'm a human performance coach.
You're a son of God, but
Well, right. But I used to do.
you're a son of God with the mission of
That's
doing
right.
human performance
Thank
coaching.
you.
Yeah, there you go.
But this idea behind human performance in the kingdom, it should be frowned upon. But let me ask you this. What if we decided to stop performing for God's love, accept the grant covenant, and instead perform from a place of love?
I mean, a lot of great comes out of that too, to include the energy to face all these tasks.
Exactly.
Because the pressure's off.
Yep.
Yeah. Now you're just co-laboring with your Father.
Co-laboring with your Father.
Right.
It's so good, man.
I mean, talk about a neat application. Think about when you were a kid and your dad let you mow the lawn for the first time.
Yeah.
You thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I get to operate that piece of machinery. I'm sharing something that my father is teaching me. Mm-hmm. Fast forward a couple years later and you're like, this is the worst job ever. Right? Because it's no longer a way to connect with your dad.
Dang, that's good.
And now it's just a chore.
That's good.
But now flip the script, because we do a lot of service projects in our ministry.
Yeah.
Right? How much fun do the men in our ministry have doing tasks that suck at home for other people?
That's mind-blowing. That's a really good point.
Yeah, your attitude totally changes because your heart's in the right place first.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if I could just figure out how to turn these tasks at home in my own brain into serving my wife and my kids,
That's it.
maybe my attitude will be a little bit better about
It's really good.
doing work at home. So, man, I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit here.
No, but it's good. I think it's great.
Yeah.
This is the best part about it is you put the practical meat on hey, this is how this works in the real world.
Yeah, the neural pathways. When,
that's
when they start firing, man, it's
Yeah.
I don't know, it's different. I love the connection too. I love the connection piece to service that, God gave us skills, and he gave us the task to serve others. And when you get to do that, the byproduct is it feels good.
That's right.
But if you're doing it to feel good, that's not necessarily the best motivation.
No, and that's there's plenty of times when I'm doing different things at work, doing things with my kids. I'm stuck on the road driving kids from one place to another for volleyball or whatever it is, and I'm exhausted. And sometimes it's not fun, and that again goes back to this Isaiah piece. Sometimes we just got to get in and do the work. And
Yes,
it's not always going to be great.
right.
Can I say one more thing?
Please do.
Okay. So if we look at Acts, the book of Acts, ACTS, we start realizing that, okay, first of all, we know that Jesus has died. He's come to his men, excuse me. He's come to his men and he's given them the Great Commission. I want you to go therefore and do these things. You have the authority. You have the authority. All of a sudden, the disciples switch. And in Acts, they start calling themselves apostles.
Huh.
So why do they do that? So the interesting thing is the word apostle was actually a secular term that they stole. They started using
From the Romans.
from the Romans and
Okay.
from the Greeks.
Right. Okay.
The word was you had generals or you had people that had an apostolic mission. Okay. And that's what they were supposed to do. Now, what the heck does that mean? Let's say I'm a general and I have,
Well, and really quick, when we hear the word apostle, we think of people.
that's right.
12 of them to be specific.
Yep.
But in the Greek and the Roman, it would have been like a specified task.
That's right.
Right. So it was an action, not a person.
Great point.
Right. So as you're describing this, everybody keep that in mind. We're talking about an action at this point.
This is a specified task. I love that.
So go ahead.
So what's happening here is that they switch to the apostles. Now, if I'm a general back in those days, I would go into an area where I was, going into battle. And I would lead my troops in, and we would get control of that area. the army would be successful, whatever it is, and we got control of the area. Danger is now not a thing. The other army's been taken care of, whatever it is. And then what I do is then from there, individuals come in and they have an apostolic mission to go into that area. And what they would do is they would send in the artists, the musicians, probably, I don't know who all else.
Philosophers,
right? Engineers,
city planners, yeah, absolutely.
Construction people, all those kind of individuals would go into that area, and they had a task, and that apostolic task was to change it to make it look like Rome. And this is important.
Just in case.
Just in case, because they wanted, just in case their king would show up into that area, they wanted him to feel like he was at home. So why did the apostles then start using that term? Because we got work to do.
Right.
So I would argue, I'm not calling you an apostle. Maybe you are. I'm not saying that. Maybe, but
am I the 13th apostle?
Yeah, I think that's probably you. Yes. But what I am saying is that anybody that says that they follow Christ has been given an apostolic mission, and that is to prepare your area of operations. What that is everywhere you go during the day, and that includes at least your family and your friends, your workplace and your community, to go out and change that area so that when your king says, I want to come visit, he feels like he's at home.
To look more like heaven.
That's right.
Awesome.
And Jesus is in our hearts, and he's ready, just like you said a little while ago, is to co-labor in that area.
Absolutely. And it's a command, guys.
It's a command.
Like, you got to stop thinking about it. This is coming up a lot lately in conversations you and I have had, when people are making excuses to not satisfy the command that they've been given.
That's right.
And here's the thing, guys, you're not going to be ready ever.
Nope.
It's never going to happen.
Nope.
And look back to the Old Testament. Almost every person that God came in person, like the God, not the Holy Spirit, I'm talking like God walked with men and gave them specified tasks. And almost every single one of those Old Testament heroes said, pick somebody else.
Yep.
Or I'm not good enough. And he used them anyway.
Yep.
And he's still doing that today.
That's it.
So get ready for the challenge. And that's why we love Isaiah 6:8 so much, because the environment was terrible when God asked who would go for him. And Isaiah raised his hand and said, me, pick me.
That's right.
And we got to do the same.
That's exactly right, man. I love that. And I was just watching a show last night on, it was a documentary on D-Day. And I was just listening to what they were doing is they were taking actual interviews of guys that survived D-Day.
Right.
And they were using actors to lip sync as if they were actually speaking. It's really, really cool what they did. And they were talking about just being in combat, and, the Army did the best they could to prepare those guys for that mission. There was danger everywhere. They went into it, and yet they still like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do. And then you start thinking about the numbers of the individuals that were killed on the beaches as they were storming. But they went and they did their thing, and they weren't 100% sure. Like, I don't know if I've got what it takes, and I don't know if there's going to be some random bullet flying through the air that's just going to get me. I won't even know it's coming.
I think the only certainty was that a lot of them weren't going to make it.
That's exactly right.
Right.
But yet they went into that, and they didn't know for sure. So when we get nervous and we think, man, I don't know if I can handle this situation, you can, because God's with you. And like I always tell my kids, as long as you're not hurting anybody, failure is not the end.
True.
Failure is one of the best things you can learn.
It's a fantastic teacher.
Yes, exactly. We don't learn from our successes. We learn from our failures if we understand them correctly. So it matters that we go into these places and we try to change the culture and make it look more like heaven.
Yeah. Yeah. I think paralysis by analysis is a real thing.
Yep.
By analysis is a real thing. And we got to stop.
That's it.
At some point, you got to stop it and just pay attention and listen. And that's what I love about your story is, it didn't take right away. So I'm not saying like you're going to have this monumental moment and God's going to talk to you and you're like, oh, now I get it. And you and I are still failing.
Yeah.
But we're failing forward. And so, that's my message. When you hear that still small voice, go do something about it.
Yeah.
It is just that simple. And it's so frustrating to hear people like they want the 100% solution. They want the guarantee, and that does not exist.
That's right. And the other thing
kind of.
Yeah, go ahead.
Our salvation is guaranteed.
True.
Like
True.
That's guaranteed. That's why like overanalyzing what I'm supposed to be doing while I'm here on this earth is so fruitless, because our salvation is guaranteed.
Yes.
All you got to do is put your heart in the right place and step towards Him.
That's right.
And you're fine.
That's right.
Yeah. My wife, when my kids get worked up, my wife looks at them and goes, "Yeah, but how's that going to affect your salvation?" And they do get annoyed.
Like something Sarah would say.
Well, and it's chintzy stuff, right?
It's
like,
awesome.
Oh my gosh, I got a bad grade on a test, and my wife will go, "Yeah, but how's that going to affect your salvation?"
Love that.
Which that's a little insensitive because that's their whole world when something's going wrong, but it's also true.
Yeah.
Like, this too shall pass, and it's not going to affect your salvation. So just take steps forward.
That's it.
Anyway, what were you going to say?
Well, what I want to say is we talked a lot about our top two things, identity and purpose, right? But I do want to touch on the rest of it. So the big five are, we already kind of talked about this one too, but where did I come from? It's a question of origin. I came from Christ.
Right.
I came from Jesus. Who am I? We are sons of the living God. Why am I here? This is a question that contemplates the meaning of life. Why would I be given life? Again, is to bring unity between heaven and earth, to do heaven's work. How should I live? This is a question that asks, is there some moral code that guides me towards living an ethical life? Well, Jesus, this is actually becoming my favorite passage in the whole Bible.
Okay.
Is John 14:6, where he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So it's a question of moral code that guides me towards living an ethical life.
That's it right there.
That's it right there. He says, I'm the truth. I'm the truth. That means that truth is not a subjective thing. Sorry, most of America right now.
Don't say sorry.
It's not a subjective thing. It's objective. And I don't know about you, Jim, but I'm not the one that wrote what truth actually is, right? So that means then that I have to understand my Creator. I have to understand His mind, because objective truth is something I can learn.
And it can't be rewritten.
It can't be rewritten.
Right.
So again, this idea, so how should I live, right, is the more I understand Jesus, the more I understand how I'm supposed to live. And then where am I going? We already talked about it. You're on your way to heaven, but so is everybody else. And you have work to do.
So get after it, guys.
Get after it.
So good, Mike.
Man, that was fun. I had no idea how it was going to go like that.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, so, I mean, any way to wrap up the story too? Because you mentioned your friends dying in the helicopter.
Yep.
Where did it go next? Because he got here.
Yeah. So that's when I told you, like I said, I started writing things down and so forth. And then I was offered a position to come here to take over a military group here with the Army. And now I'll be working with Green Berets, which is a little bit different than SEAL teams. Still, a lot of the same things. And it started me down this path of understanding what is the Spirit, like, what is it? And this gets into some other things we talk quite a bit about in the ministry, that we are tripartite human beings. The Bible tells us that we are physical, we're spiritual, and we have souls. And what's interesting is I call it interdependent. Their interdependent realization. That means whatever happens in one of them does in fact change and morph the other pieces. And the most important part of who we are is the spirit. And I'm not going to get into that because I'll make everybody go crazy. But this idea of the spirit is, that means then that I'm not here, or excuse me, you don't become more spiritual. You don't. You already are a spirit. Sorry, can't escape it. That's can't remember who the heck said that, but it's true. We can't escape being partially spirit. So that means then if I eat junk food every day, if I go and eat junk food every day, my body is going to change.
Which will trash your body.
That's right. If I go and bring in good things spiritually, it's going to change. And what we know, I'm not going to get into the science behind it, but that's right, I said science. What we know is that how I feed my spirit actually does affect me all the way down to the cellular level.
Well, and go back to your first example. If you eat junk food all day,
that's exactly right.
It will affect your body, which will also affect your spirit and your soul.
That's right. So you can't, and that's that interdependent piece.
You're right. So don't eat spiritual junk food either.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it.
Yeah, it's good, man.
Well, and if you take the pathway too, Michael, you and I connected because God gave me a message that I was supposed to join you on this journey.
Yep.
And I didn't know why at the time. And I'm here to tell you, our God talks to us. Mm-hmm. Our God gives us what we need to be our best selves. Mm-hmm. And all you got to do is walk through the doors that he opens.
That's it.
And that's my prayer for everybody here, that when the door does get open, you don't stare at it.
Yeah, that's good, man.
Or even worse, you don't walk away from it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do it, guys. You'll find yourself in an environment where you don't feel alone. You'll quickly realize that whatever it is you're struggling with, pretty much all of us are as well. And that is a great way to maximize your potential.
That's it.
Yeah.
Can I read? Can I read one quote real quick?
Yeah. You're gonna close this out with this?
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
So this comes from Geisler and Turek again, and it says, "If God exists, then there's an ultimate meaning and purpose to your life. If there's a real purpose to your life, then there's a real right and wrong way to live it. Choices you make now not only affect you here, but it will affect you in eternity." And this is me saying this, and affect others in eternity. On the other hand, if there is no God, then your life ultimately means nothing. Since there is no enduring purpose to life, there's no right way or wrong way to live it. And it doesn't matter how you live or what you believe. Your destiny is dust.
Well said.
Strong words.
Way to bring it home, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Good stuff today, Mike.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was good. So, hey, stay tuned, guys. We got a lot more like this. Definitely like and share and follow this account. Share with as many people as wants to listen. And more to come.
It's awesome, man.
Yep. Love you, buddy.
Love you too.
Talk to you next time.
All right. See you.
All right. Peace.
Bye.